Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Patrick, and I welcome you in the second part of my podcast with Brian Zane. The first part you have here, click in my face. We will talk about WrestleMania, and now I will ask Brian a few questions. The first questions is, you watch wrestling since 1998, and you was start in the middle of Monday Night War. You was which federation you support and why?
Well, Patrick, when I first started watching wrestling, I didn't actually start until I had played WCW versus NWO World Tour for the N64. I remember renting it, or my friend rented it one weekend. We played it all weekend. Neither of us knew anything about wrestling. We just heard it was a good game. So we played a lot of that, and then that was kind of the catalyst. So I heard, play the game, really like the characters, and maybe I should, watch more wrestling, for reals. And so that's kind of how I got into watching wrestling on television. And so, yeah, I started out with WCW because that was the brand I was familiar with. But I distinctly remember like flipping back and forth between that and WWF at the same time on Monday nights, and just overall being more entertained by what I saw on Monday Night Raw. Me being, the adolescent, hormonal 13-year-old boy, who liked seeing the women with the boobs and all that stuff, and all the brooding dark characters and the vampires and everything. So it really spoke to me, as a young teen. So I basically started watching more of that. And I would keep flipping back and forth to see what WCW was doing. But for the most part, I was more of a WWF fan when it was all said and done. But when I started, I was watching WCW a lot.
Okay, so next question is, one of your favorite wrestlers is Brock Lesnar. You want him as a WWE champion even when he will be so rarely.
You mean he'd be around kind of rarely? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, he'll be part-timer, maybe.
Well, okay, I think last year when he had the championship, I wasn't a huge fan of him not showing up to defend it and defending it so rarely. I thought that he should have shown up a little more often than he did. It didn't make the title look any good. And, basically I'm of the opinion that, excuse me just a second, I was getting distracted. But, I think with Lesnar, yeah, he would make a good champion if pushed right. I just didn't like the way he was presented when he was the champion, and he showed up very rarely, like you said. I think him as champion is good for business because Brock Lesnar is good for business. I think he's a draw. People know who he is, and they know he's legit as they come. But him as champion, I think if he were to be champion again, it had to be done differently.
Okay, so the next thing is about NXT, and it's, you think that NXT Takeover Dallas is good for NXT or not, because all concentrate are on WrestleMania?
Well, yeah, obviously people are going to be in town for WrestleMania because WrestleMania sells itself, but I mean, NXT TakeOver is bad for WrestleMania. Let's put it that way. I think the card for TakeOver is much better than WrestleMania is doing right now. I'm regretting not having tickets to TakeOver. I'm actually going to be going to the WrestleCon Super Show Saturday night instead of TakeOver. And I kind of wish I could do both, or I wish I got tickets in time for TakeOver before they got sold out. I think it's going to be a better show. All it does is help NXT. I don't think the fact that it's WrestleMania is going to detract from it. The whole point of NXT TakeOver being there, it's kind of like when they had the TakeOver at the Barclays Center the night before SummerSlam last year. It's just to bring more people to the town they're in, and it's a side feature of a larger event. But the side feature in this case happens to be more popular than the actual event. So the takeover will be nothing but good for the brand of NXT. But that means that the people who work WrestleMania the next night will have to really, redouble their efforts in order to not look like they're being punked out or outshined by the non-main roster people.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the next question will be, you talk about the worst them, but what is the best them that you ever hear?
But the best theme song?
Yeah, the best theme song.
Best theme song, no question, is Dan the Beast Severn. when he was around in WWF in '98. He had, again, this is just when I started watching WWF, so I had no preconceived notion of characters really, so I was just kind of like going into it blind, and then when I heard Dan Severn's theme, I thought that was the most badass song I ever heard. If you haven't heard it, go on YouTube and look it up. Dan the Beast Severn theme song.
Okay.
It is legit.
Okay. The next question is about WWE and their fight, and it's, you think that it will be a federation that will be win in ratings and start to fight with WWE like WCW?
So you're asking, will there be another Monday Night War? Is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I actually, I was asked that question by an Irish lad in a podcast I was in yesterday, and I told him the same thing, that I'm going to be talking about this at length in a future episode, a little editorial of mine, because I was thinking about it the other day as well. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point again. I don't think there's ever going to be another Monday Night Wrestling competition in our lifetimes. TNA had the best chance of doing it back in 2010, but they failed. And a lot of that had to do with overall lack of promotion by Spike TV, but also their own product wasn't very good either. So it was a combination of the two things. And also TNA's problem is they were trying to out WWE, and you can't do that because nobody does WWE better than WWE. So, I think basically the way wrestling is now, I think the only way you could get someone to compete actively with WWE, and let's make one thing clear: wrestling does not need, the federations don't, I don't think, necessarily need to compete with each other head to head in order to be good. I think, one could argue that if WWE had some direct competition, like on Monday nights, they would be, inspired or, evoked into actually, improving their product. But I don't even know if they would know what to do if given that kind of resistance. So, but I think what WWE needs to do, they need to get better first. Because then when they get better and they get good ratings, that will motivate other cable networks on the level of USA, not the small-time ones like Pop and Comet and Beep Boop and Destination America and all these other weird-sounding cable names. If Raw gets good, if WWE gets good, other cable networks on USA's level will be motivated to get wrestling on their channels, and they might want to compete with WWE. I think that's because that's where the ratings are, is Monday night. So you go for WWE's ratings. Yeah. Go for their eyeballs. So but it's all on WWE first. They have to get better before other people are motivated to create competition, in my opinion.
Yeah, but Dixie Carter, the owner of TNA, said that TNA is unsold. So maybe Ted Turner will again buy it, but I think he's too old.
No, I think the thing is, Ted Turner does not have the power that he did when he was, head of Turner Broadcasting. When the Time Warner buyout happened, he was basically became a figurehead. The only reason Ted Turner held on to WCW for as long as he did was for sentimental value, and that's not a good way to run business in 2016. And I will guarantee you, there is no one on earth who works in television with as much pull and as much political power who is a wrestling fan as there was Ted Turner. No, there's no Ted Turner out there today. So there's no one who's going to be holding on to a dying federation out of sentimental value.
Yeah, but you were talking about it, that Ted Turner liked wrestling. I was reading a book about Ted Turner, and I think that he a lot more like basketball because he was talk about it, but the wrestling. Whole thing about wrestling, he was maybe talk about it in one chapter only, and I think, I agree with you. But Turner
made his name with TBS promoting baseball, the Atlanta Braves specifically, and WCW. And the thing with wrestling is, and this has always been the case, or at least historically it was until WWE made it like this huge media empire, wrestling has always been cheap to produce for television, because back in the days when television was first around, wrestling was a one, maybe two camera setup. very cheap to broadcast, very cheap to produce. You don't need to do much when it comes to televising wrestling. Obviously, now it's evolved. It's not as cheap anymore. But wrestling historically is a very simple medium to produce. And when TBS was just starting out, cable was still kind of in its infancy. Wrestling helped keep TBS afloat, and that is why Turner had that loyalty, so to speak, for WCW. Now, obviously, but again, because television is so different now, and because there's nobody who works in television who's both a wrestling fan and has a large amount of political pull like Ted Turner, that's never going to happen again, in my opinion.
Okay, and the last question that I will ask is, you are the most viewed single YouTuber about wrestling, and you have over 1,000 subscribers, and you have
100,000.
100,000 subscribers.
I hope I have more than 1,000.
So subscribers, and when you first reveal, your first video, you think that your success will end on how many subscribers? Or how many will earn?
And to confirm, you're asking me, did I ever think I would get as big as I did when I first started my show?
Yeah.
And first of all, I am not the single biggest wrestling YouTube person. That would have to go to the people at What Culture, because they have like 5 times as many subscribers as me. And I give them all the credit in the world, so they're doing great. I'm probably the biggest independent wrestling YouTuber, my own man. I don't belong to a news corporation, that sort of thing. Like What Culture is. Yeah. And again, no knock on What Culture. They have the infrastructure to get bigger. I'm just a one-man band. So I guess by that definition, yes, I'm the biggest one. Now, when I first started the show back in 2013, I had, grandiose visions of, maybe I'll get as big as the Nostalgia Critic or Angry Video Game Nerd, these other, and Linkara, these other, and Phalis and Spoonie, these other online reviewers who I looked up to and were huge inspirations for my style, as is painfully obvious when you watch my stuff. I didn't think I would get to 100,000 subscribers. I didn't think it would happen in less than 3 years. I thought it was crazy to spike as much as I did, because for the first 2 years, it took me 2 years to get 2,000 subscribers, and then that was back in May of last year when I hit 2,000, and ever since then I've just skyrocketed, and now I'm like almost 106,000 at the time of this recording. So it's been a huge growth, and I credit Screenwave Media, the multi-channel network of which I'm signed, for helping me get there. But yet it's just crazy to think that I'm, talked about in the same breath as guys like Adam from What Culture and The Whole Effin' Show and, other people like that, or Solo Monster and things like that. These reputable YouTube wrestling channels. Good Mic Work is another one. So yeah, it's great to be mentioned in the same kind of breath as those other personalities. I never thought I'd get this big, but now it's pretty cool, But I'm trying to, I'm not trying to big time anyone. I'm like, I'm on YouTube. I have 100,000 subscribers. You should listen to what I have to say. I always try and keep it, pretty humble. I always got to try and keep it low key, and I'm not gonna quit my day job and do this full time, because you never know when the bottom's gonna fall out or when I'm just gonna snap and say, screw it, I'm done with you people. But in the meantime, I'm having a good time. It's fun. It's a fun hobby, So I didn't think it would get this big a following.
Okay, so they are all my questions that I will ask Brian, and they are all of questions I ask. So I thank you guys for watching. My special guest.
If you don't mind, can I do all my plugs? Can I promote all my stuff?
Yeah.
Because the last guy who interviewed me wouldn't let me do it. Okay. So just for everyone who's listening, my YouTube channel is Wrestling with Regret, and Regret has a W in front of it for alliterative purposes. My Twitter handle is @ZMan Brian Zane. Find me on Facebook, also @Wrestling with Regret. You can go buy the t-shirts on my store on prowrestlingtees.com/wrestlingwithregret. If anyone's going to be in Dallas, the Dallas area for WrestleMania weekend, I'm going to be at WrestleCon in downtown Dallas Friday and Saturday, the 1st and the 2nd of April. I'll have special guests Sabu, Melissa Coates, and Brian Cage with me all weekend. I'll be signing autographs and selling t-shirts and giving away free swag. It's going to be a good old time. There's dozens, if not hundreds more, of big wrestling stars who are going to be at WrestleCon. Go to WrestleCon.com for more information on that. But you owe it to yourself to go if you're going to be in Dallas.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you for watching.